Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, Content Specialist for the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, which is part of the School of Politics, Security, and International Affairs at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome to our Middle School Civics Highlight Series. We'll be focusing our attention on Benchmark 2.6, examining the election and voting process at the local, state, and national levels. In Part 2, we focus on free and fair elections and trust in democratic institutions. As for our benchmark clarifications, we will explain how free and fair elections promote trust in democratic institutions and preserve the republic. We will ask ourselves these questions. How do free and fair elections promote trust in democratic institutions, and how do they preserve the republic? First, let's focus on examples of evidence that free and fair election processes promote trust in democratic institutions. This evidence includes, but is not limited to, universal suffrage for all eligible men and women, including minorities and the disabled. Universal means everyone. As long as a person is eligible to vote, then they will not be barred or have a barrier put up in front of them to exercise their voting rights. Suffrage or voting rights are also not limited to those who are wealthy, literate, or who own property. These characteristics are important because in the early years of the Republic, voting was limited to those who were wealthy, literate, or who owned property. So one of the ways that free and fair elections promote trust in democratic institutions includes that in the selection of public officials, that selection is left up to everyone who is eligible. And so for all people, one must be a U.S. citizen to vote. And in nearly all states but one actually, people need to be registered to vote. And so in order to experience and enjoy a person's voting rights, a person must be a U.S. citizen, 18 years of age or older, and registered to vote. Freedom to register as a voter or run for public office is one other piece of evidence about free and fair elections. So in the 1960s, for example, there were practices in place that would keep African Americans from voting in elections by denying them their right to register to vote. Well, the Voting Rights Act made it illegal nationally to deprive anyone who was otherwise eligible to vote their right to register to vote. We also have people running for public office, right? There are transparent procedures as to who is eligible to run for which public offices. So for example, there are public offices that have residency requirements, that a person must have lived in the area that they seek to represent. We also have age requirements when it comes to certain offices. For example, a person cannot be a member of the U.S. House of Representatives unless they are at least 25 years old. In the event that there is some concern that an election was not tabulated or counted fairly, another piece of evidence that free and fair elections promote trust in democratic institutions include recount procedures. That in the event that there's concern that the election ballots were not counted properly, that there are procedures in place to confirm the result or to alter the result in case there was a miscount of some kind, whether intentional or not. How do free and fair elections preserve the republic? Examples of evidence that free and fair election processes preserve the republic include that elected officials are chosen by election and they are peacefully removed from office. A person who loses an election, depending on the circumstances, may serve in office for several more weeks or months. For example, in the United States, we hold the election for Congress in November, and yet it isn't until the following January that those individuals leave office, and it is a peaceful transition process. In fact, it is very common for for all former presidents to attend the inauguration of the president taking office, even if it turns out that it's a president who lost re-election to the person who was taking office. That is very commonly done. It isn't always done, but it's very commonly done. There are also laws against election fraud to prevent vote tampering. So one of the ways to tamper with the vote, for example, is to try to vote more than once. And so there are laws against various forms of election fraud. So we do see that free and fair elections do play an important role in promoting trust in the democratic process and in preserving the republic. Thank you for joining me for Middle School Civics Highlights. Do you still have questions? Please contact us using the information that appears on the screen. Till next time, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine. Thank you for joining me.